Okay, we're going to learn how to process the brains using FreeSurfer. We'll do it on HiPerGator. We're going to do 3 brains from the set of participants of brains that we had dealt with. We had copied over into our subdirectory and extracted those and had viewed them. And so if you haven't done that already, please do that first. And but we're going to use those brains for this. This is really for the homework assignment. So I am going to write this code locally and then upload it. But you could write it on HiPerGator if you wanted to. So if you go to the on-demand, again, if you're off campus, need to be using the VPN, and then go Files, go to our class directory, and then Share. So here's that class.zip file that we extracted. You had copied it into your subdirectory, and then you extracted it, made this, it had this add directory and 4 subjects in there. I also created a code directory in there that will put my scripts. And so if we went in there, I could create a file. Helps if I create a file first, and I'm just going to call this temp.shell sh. I will edit it, and I could use this online code editor to do all of this. I don't like this one that much. It's okay if I already have a script written. I would prefer to do it elsewhere, and so I'm not going to do that, and then I'm just going to delete that. But you're welcome to use it. Again, if you don't want to use any offline tools, you don't want to install anything on your computer, that's fine. It works well. I do recommend changing the input. Let me show you this again. If we edit it, just change this mode to sh, and that should hopefully fix issues that could happen. And if you prefer, there's other different schemes you can use if you prefer a dark mode or some other colors. But I'm going to write it something locally. So in here, add me. So we had done, at least I had done, you might have chosen to someone else, but we've done this 002S4225. We're going to ignore this subject for now. So remember, we had converted their T1 file and had looked at this nifty, had looked at both the DICOM and the nifty. And I'm going to leave that one alone for now, because we're going to do something with the other 3. You can do something with that person, that's fine. I mean, make that part of your processing, but I'm not going to. So what we're going to do is open up, I'm using Visual Studio Code on here, and then I'm making sure my end of line sequence is LF. This is on a Windows computer, and if you're on a Mac or Linux, it should default to LF. But then we need to know, okay, what do we do? How do we write this code? So usually what I do is go to help.rc.ufl.edu. So this is the research computing help page. Go over to our sample Slurm scripts. And this basic single-threaded job is fine. So I copy those lines down to the present working directory, hostname, date lines. We can paste them in. And now we need to modify these sbatch. So here we want, the first line is the job name. And for the job name, I'm going to give this something descriptive, at least descriptive to me. So I'm going to call this the first person's ID, and then FS7. So we're going to use FreeSurfer version 7 to process. And there were 2 ways we could write the script. So the homework assignment is process 3 brains using FreeSurfer. We could put them all in one script, could run one, then run the other one, and then run the other one. But that's going to take a while. If each one takes about 7 or 8 hours or 10 hours to do, multiply that by 3, and that's how long it's going to be running. That's okay, but it also misses part of the point of HiPerGator, which is that we can process in parallel. And So we're going to process it in parallel. And it'll be clear how that's going to work. So that's our first line. It's what type of mail? Is it okay to send it when it ends, when it fails? If you want it when it begins or all, you can do that. I typically prefer just fail, but you can lead other things in there. It could be helpful to know when it's done. And you just got to be careful if you're running 100 or 200 brains. You don't want to get that many emails. It overwhelms your inbox. I'm going to change my email address. And then number of tasks is fine. Memory, let's add this. 3 gigabytes should be fine. 4 would be safe, but we can do this as 3. And then time, so how long is this going to take to process? So the hours, minutes, seconds. So it should only take about 8 hours, but it could take longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to request 20 hours. And that's usually safe. There are some brains that occasionally, for whatever reason, it gets stuck doing some process and it's taking longer for the software to figure it out, for FreeSurfer to do what it's doing, and so it can take longer, but 20 is usually a safe bet for this level of data. And so that's fine for now. So 3 gigabytes of RAM, which is usually enough, sometimes 4. 4 would be safer. 3 or 4 is okay though. And then here I'm going to change this name, but I'm just going to have it. This is going to be an output file. So the job name doesn't really matter that much because that's just whatever is going to HiPerGator for the scheduling. But it's good to be descriptive so then if you were looking at what jobs were running, you could tell which one was which. And then this is the output file. So it will output a log file. In this case, it's going to be everything that FreeSurfer is doing. And so I just like to repeat the job name, keep it descriptive. You don't need to change that. The %J is should be a timestamp. Okay, so what do we need to do? Well, first we can load FreeSurfer. So how do we do that? We do module load, and then we do FreeSurfer. Okay, so what's the problem with that? Well, there are multiple versions of FreeSurfer, so how can we know what version we want? So we're going to use version 7, but let's show this. Well, I'm already in a file explorer, so let's open in terminal, and here's a command that's helpful. So module, spider, and then I'm going to do FreeSurfer. So we used this command before on that, if you watched the other video, when you're trying to load the software called pigs. So module spider FreeSurfer, and we can see there are different directories. And if you want a very specific one, so we want this newest version, 7.1.0. And so I'm going to copy and paste module that, and it will tell you a little bit more information. It's not very descriptive for our purposes, but we want FreeSurfer 7.1.0 just in case the default is something else. And so I'll come back to the code. I'm going to specify 7.1.0. Again, if you were doing a study and other data had been processed with FreeSurfer 6 or even an older version, be consistent, keep that same version. But we're going to use this newest version. And then, so that's going to make FreeSurfer available for the script to use. And then we're going to module load MRI CRO-GL, because we're going to convert DICOM files to Nifty. And so we'll do module load MRI CRO-GL, and then we're going to module load pigs. We have to module load this GCC 5.2.0 first. And then pigs. So how do we know that? We can come over here and I can module spider pigs. This is make sure you load GCC 5.2.0 first. And so I know this, I've been doing this for a while, so I know what we're doing. And but this is allow us to use a tool DICOM to nifty-x to convert files, and it'll simplify our script. So don't worry about that, you can just copy these. So now we should be able to have everything loaded that we want. So the first thing I'm going to do is change directories. So let's remember we're writing the script, so we can test this out all live. So I could test this first line, meaning I can copy this. We can put it in here. So I get the present working directory. That present working directory, the host name, and then the date. And so we tested that, it works. Now what we want to do is we want to change directory into the proper place. So in this case, we're actually in the correct directory. So I can list the contents. We have these 4 subdirectories, and we want to, so we're going to do some processing in these. So we're going to be ready to go. So I'm just going to type pwd, and then I'm going to copy and paste that. So using this online terminal, it automatically copies when I highlight. So I'm going to copy that, come over to my script, paste that in. And then, but really we're going to go this first one. So we want to go all the way down into that directory. So we're going to go into, I guess I could have copied that as well. We'll paste that in, get rid of the extra spaces. And then we'll go into that directory. So we know 5178. So we know the structure of it. And what we can see here is now there's this accelerated Sagil MP Rage. So we're going to go into that directory as well. So there's our whole path. If you want to test it, you can. So I'm going to copy that just to make sure this works. So I'm going to CD and say nothing and enter. So I'm home. So now I'm at, for me, my home on there is home/JJ Tanner. So now I'm going to paste in that path, that command, and we'll see if it works. It didn't give me an error. I'm there. I've verified that that worked. We didn't really have to do that, but again, we're sort of debugging the script as we go. And of course we'd want to comment all of these, which I'm not doing here just to save a little bit of time, but I encourage you to comment and say what this are doing. We'll just do one. This loads FreeSurfer version 7.1 to make it available to use. And then all of that, changing into a directory, this change, or I can even say sets current. I'll use change. I was trying to use a new word, but we'll just use change. This changes directory to the indicated path. It's maybe more descriptive than you need to be, but it can be helpful. It doesn't hurt to be overly descriptive on this. And I won't do more commenting just to save some time on here. Okay, so we've changed directory into there. Now what do we want to do? We're going to convert our file using DICOM to nifty-x. So we had done this on the other video, but it's going to be the same process. So we're going to do DCM to NIIX, and then we're going to output the file name, and we want to call it this person's ID. So I'm going to copy that, their ID, and then I'm going to do underscore T1W.NII. Well, actually, we don't even have to put the extension. And then dot was the current directory. So that's what we had done before in the other video. So now what that does is it'll convert this directory really it looks in subdirectories, and it'll save out a file called that within our current location. And if you don't want to change directories first, you could put in that whole path, and it would, and in both places for the file output, or if you want to save it elsewhere, you could put in a whole path, and then instead of a dot, you could put in this whole path. But we're just changing directories just to be a little easier. So we do that. And then what we're going to do is run recon all. But before we do that, we need to change the subjects directory. This is really important. So FreeSurfer has a default subjects directory. On HiPerGator, that default subjects directory is not a location where you can save any files. You cannot write to it. So you have to change it. So in this case, what I'm going to do is, let's create a subjects directory. So I'm in, so the blue CLP7934 share, and then my folder. I'm going to create a new directory. I'm going to call this subjects. I'll just keep it simple. Or you can do that with the command line make dir. But here's that path. I'm actually going to copy this path using that. And then I'm going to type in export. And you have to do this exactly what it looks like, all caps with the underscore. That's really important. And then I'm going to paste in that. And you don't need the trailing slash, so take that off. And so that's setting this, temporarily changing FreeSurfer's subjects dir. So that needs to be done after you load FreeSurfer. So that could be any point as long as it's after here. So I could have put it up in here if we wanted to, but we'll just leave it where it is. And so that's going to be our output directory. So now what's the command to run FreeSurfer? Recon -all. And there's a little bit more to it, but that's the gist of it. So we're going to set our output subject. And so this is going, I'm just going to keep the same subject identifier. It's much easier to do that than create a new subject. And then I'm going to do the input. Now in this case, I'm going to put in this whole path. We are in this directory, so I don't have to do this. But just to be safe, I'm going to do what's called the absolute path. And I'm going to put in that whole path. And then we want to get this output file that we created. So that's our output file, but we have to add .nai.gz. So that, remember, this file hasn't been created yet. We're just running the script. And I've stopped testing this live because while DICOM to nifty X would be pretty fast, I'm just letting this run in the script. And I'm just going to assume this is all going to work. And then, so we have an input, so we set this as a subject, we have an input, and then we have all. It means run everything. And then that's going to be it. And so then at the end, I'm just going to put date. And so that will save the script when this finishes. Okay, so there's our script. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that. Let's save it to some location. I have a local storage for this class. So this is going to be, I'm going to save this. So what we save it, this is going to be important, and the file name. So I'm going to save it, and I'll show this to you in just a minute. I'm actually going to call this what I called the job name. So this ID underscore FreeSurfer 7. And that's a shell script. So it's been saved. So now what I'm going to do is upload that to HiPerGator under the code. Or you could copy and paste in there. But meaning I could create a file like I showed you, edit that file and just paste everything in there. But let's upload. I'm going to upload this. I'm going to browse, and I need to go to my class directory, and here's the file name. So it's uploaded. It's very small, and so very fast upload. So I can just view it just to verify that it's there. So there are two things wrong with that script. So what's wrong with that script? And that's why I just viewed it. Here, let's show you what's wrong with that script. We need to change the account on here. So most of you don't have to do this. I do. I say something wrong with the script. Not really wrong, but we want to change this. We want to change the account to the class. So sbatch -- account equals CLP7934, and then we're going to do sbatch QoS equals CLP7934. And if you were trying to run a lot of brains at once, or all of the class, all of you were trying to run all of these at the same time, then we might want to put a -B. You can go ahead and put that in anyway. That's requesting burst access allocation, and that will allow us to use more than 32 cores. So I'm just going to put that on there. So that is, now the script is correct. It would have been fine if I hadn't edited that because I have an account, but that was, let's just upload this again. As I said, there can be some issues. Let's just view it. There's always issues with image processing. And this looks good. Okay, so I'm not going to run that yet because we need to do this for 2 other brains. So what do we need to do? I'm going to close that. We'll keep that one open actually. So we want to see who else do we want to do? We want to do this 2 and then 6053 and then 34441. So I'm going to drag this over as a separate screen, a separate window. I'm going to split my screen this way so I can have these both side by side. And if you can't do that, that's fine. But what we want to do is one more command. So I'm navigating into this code directory, and what I want, again, because I've chosen to do this in parallel rather than serial. If you wanted to, you could go through and for each of those steps do the same thing, meaning if you look at this, if we come back here, to look at that script, here did DICOM to NetBeats CD it change directory into that location, did the conversion, did this recon all. Then after that step I could add more lines. Again, in here I could add more lines, and I could repeat this. I'm just going to put those there. I could repeat this, modify this to match. Okay, we want to do 26053. Like that, and just make sure I'm 6053 like that, and I make all the appropriate changes. And that'll work. And so this would do this process, then that one, and then that one. Or you could use a for loop. But the problem with that is you might forget to change everything, or it takes a while. If you only do it for 2 or 3 brains, it's fine. It's not an issue. But again, if you have to do this for 100 or more, or even more than about 5, it's going to take a while to do that, and then it makes the script really long and sort of hard to track. So what I prefer is to have a new script for each person, so then I can run them all at once. And so then what I'm going to do is create a copy of the script and then edit the script, but we can do it all automatically. So how do we do that? Okay, so I'm in this location. We want to keep a copy of the script. We need to do this. We've already written this script once. We just need 2 more for 2 more subjects. For this 2, 6053 and 3, 4441. So what we can do is a little loop. So I'm going to do for, and I'm going to do subject in 002 S 6053 003 S 4441 do. So we want to copy the script, and I'm going to copy it, but we're going to give it the new ID. So again, we can call our variable. We set our variable. We can call it. And so there's our new script. And then we're not ending the loop yet. We're going to do one more step. We're going to use this command called sed. And what this is going to allow us to do is search within the text file and replace. So this is a find and replace, like you can do in Word. So we're going to do an inline replacement, meaning we're just going to edit a file. And what I'm going to do is we want to search for any instance of 002 S 5178. So that's the file we created initially. And within it, and if we remember, we had, here's this 5178. We can see everywhere in here that matches. And this is why naming is important. If you're consistent, we can do some fancy things like this. So we're going to search for any string matching that, and we're going to replace it. So the double quotes on this are important here. And we're going to replace it with the subject ID. So that's going to be either this 6053 or 4441, the whole thing. So we're finding and replacing. And then, and I don't remember what the G stands for. And then what we're going to search is this file. And now we're done. So this is a little loop. So it's going to make a copy of this file. Then within that file, it's going to search for every subject ID and replace it with a new ID. So this should work. How do we know if it worked? I can list. Now we have 2 more files. They match our new IDs, our 6053, 4441. So now I can, let's look inside one. So I can do the cat command, and we should see 6053, and everything looks like it was appropriately converted and substituted. So now we've done it. So again, not a big issue if you're just doing a few of these, but if you have to do hundreds, this saves you loads of time. So that was a command I knew would work because I do that weekly almost. And so that is something that can save some time. Now we should be ready to submit these. So I'm going to, for subject in this case, I'm just going to do star.shell because I know there's only these 3 files. And this is how we submit something. You do sbatch is the command, and then we have to call our variable, and what we've set as a variable is that whole thing, the ID and the shell, and done. Or because there's only 3, we could just do sbatch of the 3 and it wouldn't take that long. And we should get a little submitted batch job and get 3 of them. If you have to do more than 1,000, I don't remember the cutoff limit. HiPerGator team, it says don't do this if you're doing thousands and thousands, but a few of them or some hundreds, it's okay. But that should be submitted. Now we'll see if that's running. So how do we know if it's running? There's different ways to look at it. And there should be an output log that's going to be saved within here, this directory that we submitted them from. That hasn't started yet. I don't see anything. It's because the jobs haven't started. So I had requested burst allocation, burst access, which means that submission is, they kind of put it on hold a little bit. Sometimes it can be almost instantaneous, but the priority is lower. So we could keep listing to see, or we can come back over here to our dashboard and look at active jobs. So this is showing all jobs, my jobs. They have been submitted, no time has been used, so that you can see they're queued. So they're there, we're waiting, and they should get running pretty soon. Again, we can also come back and I could look to see, okay, now there's a log file for each one. So I could cat this first log file just to see what's in it. Oops. And it's going, so right here. So you got to be careful with this because it can do a lot. I mean, this file can get very long. Another way to do it is called a command called less on the log file. And then it'll just show you to the end of the screen. And so then I could read through it and go, so we're starting at the top, DICOM to Nifty, found files, converted, and then now FreeSurfer is running. There's a subjects directory, and you can go through there. There's a lot of text in here, but it is processing it, and it didn't give any errors right away. And so to get out of this, I could keep going down. To get out of this, I can hit Q to quit out of that, but that's running, and I can come over here, check the active jobs again. I'll refresh this, and we can see that they're running. They've been running for over a minute now. Hasn't crashed yet. That's usually a good sign. If it crashes earlier, then there was probably a typo, something went wrong, couldn't find a file. So my recommendation is you go and you look at the log file. You can find the log file in here, the file explorer. So in my case, I create a code folder. I ran these from that code folder, so I have these logs. And so then I could come and I can view them. I can scroll through and look, and it would tell you where the problem is. And it might be a little obscure, but it's usually pretty good. So that's what I recommend. If something's not working, look at the log file, and it should tell you how to do it. So now we've just walked through. If you follow those and submit it, do the homework assignment. That's how you do the homework assignment. Just to show you subjects. So now each of these subjects has a directory that's been created, and scripts is running. We'll go over this a little bit later, the organization of FreeSurfer directories, but it's running. There's the log that is saved, so everything that FreeSurfer does is saved to log, and MRI files are created, and more files will show up in here over time because this is still early in the processing. So this should finish up in about 7 or 8 hours, and I can check back then, or I can check back and see are the jobs done. If it's not showing up here anymore. Remember, I had requested just to fail. If you requested for it to be to give you a job status when it starts or when it ends, then you'll get some emails. But I said just do this when it fails. And that's introduction to processing FreeSurfer on HiPerGator.